All right, everybody. So I'm here again, this time with Rohan Goldsmith. He is our creative of the month for the month of June. And if you guys don't know, you can check out the Facebook group and the Jamaica Animation Nation group. You'll see where he shares a lot of his work, a lot of frame by frame, hand-drawn animation. And you can tell he has a deep painting background and drawing background. And we just want to find out more about Rohan Goldsmith. For those who, if it's your first time finding out about Creative of the Month, we essentially highlight a creative every month who we see, constantly practicing, always doing work. And, we appreciate the work that they do and we want to find out more about those artists. So the artist or the creative that we're talking to today is Rohan Goldsmith. Rohan, you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm hearing an echo.
You hear an echo? Let me mute my mic while you talk. Maybe it will go.
Okay. Yeah, so Rohan Goldsmith is the name. I'm a graduate of Edna College of the Visual and Performing Arts. I teach art at Arden High and I lecture drawing for animation at UWI Carmack. In a nutshell, yeah, that's me.
Okay, cool. You teach at Arden. I mean, Adrian White.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man, good friend of mine, good friend of mine. So tell me, how long have you been doing art? I mean, you say you graduated in the Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts. How long have you been doing this?
Well, as long as I could remember. I remember growing up and finding a cereal box that had Superman on it, and I was intrigued and I copied what I saw, I like how it looked, and that kind of had me, trying to copy things, and I stood out in my classes because the teachers were like, "Hey, this guy can draw." I was like, "Can't everybody do it?" So yeah, so ever since in high school, I went to Kingston College. We had a really good art department, and the so it was nurturing. So you got a lot of drawing practice, and then of course in the Manly, so yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. So art is that something that you've been, making a living with? Is that your main job, or do you do something else? Work in insurance or work in a bank or something like that?
Okay, well, I've been teaching at Arden High forever, more than half my life, and art, of course, and I do a little freelancing, every now and then. It can't pay the bills, but it can supplement income. So I don't know. I draw every day. I mean, it's like I'm addicted to it. It's like smoking. If a couple of days pass and I don't draw, I have to take a draw. We're not that kind of drawer, you know.
Well, it's healthier than smoking, that's for sure. And it instead of smoking costs you money, this makes you money. I
Yeah.
mean, you could argue that the pencils and the paper and the paint cost money, but you still make money from it, so it's better than smoking.
Better for your health as well.
Yeah. So, all right, tell me then, like in terms of like the freelance work you've done, like what kind of artistic jobs have you gotten? Murals or paintings, portraits, or kind of stuff?
Okay, well, over the years I've um, done book covers. I've illustrated a couple of book covers. Um, I've done lots of paintings. In the earlier years, I used to paint a lot more. So I've had a particular collector who Winston Roberts, who died. He used to collect my work. And that felt kind of cool. I was like, but he died several years ago. So the painting part of it has kind of not been so, what's the word, alive since digital art came into being, because I really can't tell the last time I used an actual pen and a pencil. I've been using this for the longest while now. But I'm the type of person who, if I go to a meeting, I'm gonna start drawing. I'll draw everybody in the meeting and stuff, because it helps the meeting to move along, in a amicable way. Other than that, I'll be bored. So I sometimes get in trouble for that at work. You're drawing in a meeting.
Yeah, in fact, I think because I think you and I met at UWI, both of us we started teaching the same time, and we went to this teacher
Orientation.
orientation, and I think you were sketching in that meeting, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so tell me then, like, one of the questions I always ask artists is like, what was it like when you did your first commission? And when I say what was it like, I want you to tell me the experience in terms of, were you nervous or were you just happy, like, oh yeah, I get to make some money off of what I love to do? Did you know what to charge? Were you nervous you're charging too much and then you find out you're charging too little? Or, did you, like, tell me about that experience of that first commission.
My first commission was in high school, as in 9th or 10th grade. And my mom asked me to paint a bird. And I painted it, and she took it to her workplace. And man, I had to paint birds after that. I got so many birds, and I was like, I don't like painting the same thing twice. But they said, I want that bird, so I'm painting this bird over and over. It was high school. It felt really good, to be earning, at that early stage. So that was the first one. The others are just others, but that was the first commission I can recall. So it was all the way in high school.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Not many people, get to say they've started earning their art from, high school days. So that's and it sounds like your mother was very encouraging of your ability to draw.
Not initially. Initially, she was like, artist, you're gonna starve. My dad was the one who encouraged me, but when she saw how good I was, she, lend her support. But initially, it was like, that's a ridiculous idea. Artists tend to starve. So
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
how long ago
How long
was
ago was that when you're being told that you're gonna starve as an artist?
I
I
think
just kind of, I was like, what?
about 6.
When you're
because,
6?
because I want to be an artist forever. I remember in primary school when they asked the kids, what you wanted to be, because every year you did that. In first, what do I call it, 1 grade, every year you get asked that and you get to sign something up. Everybody wants to be a police, a doctor, a lawyer. So I want to be an artist. I didn't know if it was something possible at the time, but I've always wanted to do art.
No, that's good. That's good. No, I was asking how long ago it was because I just wanted to kind of show the audience that, up to this day, people are still being told that they're going to become a starving artist. And you can express your views on this, but I kind of find it strange in a world where every book cover, every magazine cover, even what is on the cover of the Gleaner or the Observer, some creative, we call a photographer has to take the pictures in order to make these things sell, So why is it they think that you're going to be a starving artist and art is literally everywhere, every billboard, every wrapper on a product, everything, Like what are your thoughts on the whole starving artist thing?
Well, I think that it's a misconception of what an artist is. Well, not a misconception, a narrow field of view of what an artist is. A painter, because that was the horizon of being an artist. Being a painter. So you're a painter like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, and you will, slave in some chapel, painting on the ceiling, and then you will die. And then after you die, they'll say, "Hey, this guy was a really good guy." And, so art is not as people are not as knowledgeable about art as they should or as they can be,
Yeah,
because art is it is
it is. It
everything
is.
is art.
It's everywhere. Everything is art. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything is art. I mean, you have all kind of artists. You have graphic designers who you can consider artists, photographers, videographers. Even dancers can be considered artists because they are creating something, from the mind and bringing it to reality. Um, so let me ask, because I want to segue into the animation because you're an artist primarily, but reason I brought you on here is because we've been seeing you do a lot of animation stuff. I'm going to, and I mean, you said already earlier that you're teaching the animation program, but I just want to show something here. Let's share screen. All right, so this is your Instagram page. This is the JANN page. So from time to time, you post stuff like this, right? Frame by frame. Sometimes you do it sketched, sometimes it's colored like this. And then here's another one. Lots of stuff birthed from figure drawing. So I kind of wanted to know, right? What made you so interested in doing animation? Or, how comes you started experimenting with animation?
Well, it kind of hit me um, a number of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because
Hmm.
one of my sons did the animation course at UE.
Right.
And when he started, I was like, "Hey, Michael, I want to follow when they teach you stuff. Just show me what they teach you." And it started out, but I never followed on. But after I started teaching at UE, I was like, "Hey, if I'm gonna be teaching students how to draw figures for animation, I should probably learn animation as well."
Hmm.
And then I started with Autodesk Sketchbook. It has a kind of animation feature called Flipbook. I
Right.
started with that, and then I'm into a Clip Studio. You see, animation to me, because I do a lot of figures. It's like figure
Yeah.
drawing, like in figure drawing class, but you're drawing hundreds of figures.
Right. And for those who don't know, I mean, all artists should know what figure drawing is, but figure drawing is basically when you're drawing the human figure, you actually have a live human model and you're drawing that model and the learning how the body looks. Because of course you can look at a picture and draw somebody, but when you see them in real life and you're seeing the light hitting them and you're seeing where the weight affects different portions of skin and body fat and so on, it has a completely different um, feel, so to speak, than just looking at a flat picture. So I'm gonna ask, in terms of the process, like behind your animation, like I'm looking at this one with the walk. Is it like you take a video of somebody walking, or do you actually, sit there with the modeler actually walking and you sketch out the
Well,
frame? Like, how do you approach a process like?
usually I like to draw from references. Right? I like my drawings to look credible. Right? Sometimes when you draw stuff from your head, you kind of think
Hmm.
things into place. I like to check, say, is this accurate? So when I'm animating, usually I either do a recording of something, so I can see every step, slow it down, and see everything, or look at a video. So if I'm drawing, I remember animating a bottle I had. So I'd look at it and I'd draw it, and then I'd turn it around and I'd draw it, and turn it around and I'd draw it, so that it looks convincing.
Okay. So these models, they're usually actually in front of you?
No, recordings.
Recordings. Okay. And well, I think the president of JANN, Shireen, I know she wanted to be here because she more so even than me was like, we have to get Rohan on here, because one of the things that she's definitely impressed by is like in terms of the coloring and shading, you manage to maintain to make it be pretty consistent, so like each of the frames, you have to, I'm assuming you have to approach it like a painter and try to go for accuracy as much as possible. Like, um, it doesn't get a bit tedious to have to do that for all of these frames. Like, how many frames is this particular animation?
Okay, that one is not a lot. That was about 30 frames.
30 frames. And so you have to paint all 30 frames.
Yeah.
So how you manage to maintain the consistency?
You see, I wake at 2 o'clock every morning. I go to bed like really early. That's why I want to do this early. I go to bed like 6, and I wake up at 11, and I'm up until 6 again. So in the quiet of the morning, I usually do these. It is I draw pretty quickly, right? I practice speed drawing, right? So it's like a workout, right? Each time I draw, it's like going to the gym, but for drawing.
I like that analogy. And you get up early every morning and do this in the 2 a.m. hours.
Yeah. Every day.
That's very disciplined. That's something you've been doing all your life. That's the time you get up every day.
For several decades, yeah. Well, a couple at least. Yeah, because some other rhythm? What's the word? Your sleep pattern.
Sleep pattern. I know what you're talking
about. Yeah. Mine is weird. So when I wake up early in the morning, because I'm a writer as well. I write. I play guitar. Guitar, you probably noticed over there.
Yes, I noticed that.
So have to wake up and do something creative in the morning. Playing guitar early in the morning kind of not so good though, because the neighbors, but drawing is quiet. That wakes nobody.
True, very true. Yeah, like I'm noticing, like even on this one, like I'm looking at the hatching, and the hatching is very consistent from frame to frame. Very, very consistent.
That's my favorite technique. Hatching, I like to draw with pen. I always tell my students, don't draw with a pencil. Draw with a pen. Because what it does, it forces you to make less mistakes. Because your mind tells itself, I can't erase.
Right,
so
right.
You make less mistakes. Right? So I don't draw with pencils, I always draw with pens. So I try to bring the same feel into the digital drawing, a pen kind of feel.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, because whenever I draw with a pen, I definitely pay more attention to what I'm drawing than if I'm using a pencil where I know I can erase. I tend to kind of just be a little bit more careless with the pencil. But yeah, man, this is good stuff. So tell me then, because you do a lot of practice. This is, even though it's like some little 2-second stuff, 10-second stuff, 12-second stuff, you do a lot of this frame by frame practice. And I just wonder, like, what do you plan to do with it? Is it just because you want to experience animation and understand it so you can teach, better, or do you actually want to work on an animation production at some point?
Definitely. Okay, I was watching because I love cartoons,
Hmm.
right? I've recently gotten into anime,
Right.
right? But initially I was into like Justice League and stuff like that because because of the drawing, right? And I used to, I was telling my son earlier that there was some type of animation that I couldn't enjoy because the drawing felt wrong. It wasn't realistic. I'm kind of, shedding that now. But to me, the drawing had to be realistic. So I was watching Invincible already, and the animation,
Oh,
the drawing was, it was just heaven, right? The perspective,
yeah,
the
yeah.
proportion, everything was, you know, I'd like to get to that level, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, we should talk about Invincible later on in this because man, I love that animation. I vexed finished so early. I'm dying for season two to come out. Really dying for season two to come out. But literally, so all right. So I mean, I'm looking at your style, and I mean, I definitely would love to see you work on an animation. And there are definitely animations out there where they use, this kind of realistic style. Usually, they're more like, your the more artsy type of animations that you'd see in film festivals, especially the type of stuff you would see in Europe. Um, you know, is that something you're going for? And also, is it that you'd want to work on someone's production, or since you're a writer, you have stuff that you would want to animate?
uh, I don't think you should put yourself in a box and say this is what I want to do and nothing else. I will. I mean, I'd like to do some of my own stuff. Um, my son's an animator as well. So and I have three sons, and they're all really good artists, right? One is an animator, and one is an illustrator. So I've toyed with the idea of working with them on a production. We've actually done stuff together. We've actually worked on a book for 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 Nikita, right? So all three of us
Okay,
worked on this book. Is it? Uh, yeah.
I better look at that. Okay, okay. Dance of
So
Love.
so so so,
The
so
West.
Micah did the cover, and Brandon and I did the illustrations on the inside. So all um, did something in the book. So
Nice.
first piece that all three of us have done together. We've done like pieces where uh, so in this one, my son did the line drawing, I did the coloring, right, and I did the cover, did the layout, but he did the
Okay,
drawing,
okay.
I did the rendering, right? That's Brandon,
Nice.
and there's some pieces that I worked on by myself, like this one,
Okay, nice. Leap
but
into history. I feel like I've seen this before, this Leap into History. Is that
yeah,
a book on Amazon?
yeah, it's in the um, stores, so you may have seen it.
Yeah, man, I think I've seen that in a store somewhere. It's not on a
So
school syllabus, is it? It's just a
that's,
book
yeah,
that's out there,
possibly, because
possibly.
that's what we were working towards, getting it on the syllabus when I was doing the work, because they had to approve the drawing as well. You know how many times I had to change the drawing? The female character had on a swimsuit, and they were like, "No, too much showing," right? So I had to change her color, and then they wanted it to be Jamaican colors. And now they probably wanted to change because they wanted to go to the rest of the Caribbean. But that's about stuff like that. They keep coming back and
Right,
saying,
right. Yeah, no, let me tell you, that's something that people don't realize. And I mean, I'm gonna say this for both sides of the fence. On the artist side of the fence, a lot of artists don't realize that, boy, that's something that comes with the territory. You know, the clients may ask you to do something over and over because they, they're not artists. So they have an idea of what they want, but they don't know exactly what they want until they see it. And they know what they don't want when they see it.
yeah,
And, but they don't know exactly what they want until they see it. But on the other hand, on the other side now from the client, boy, sometimes the clients ask you to change things too many times, and I don't know if you've ever had one of those clients where you've had to say to them, "Look, we've done too many changes now. We have to cap it at some point." Like, have you had that situation?
uh, well, I've had situation where I'm frustrated, but I still go and change it. But I never really told them, hey, we have to stop this at some time. But they've never gone, infinitively overboard. But sometimes it does get frustrating. I'm like, okay, but this is what you asked for. I'm saying, yeah, but see, that's the thing. If they were paying the real price for it, they
Yeah, I was
in
about to say.
Jamaica, yeah, in Jamaica they tend to, because when I look at what some of the stuff that I do is supposed to cost, if you tell somebody that, they say, oh, it's okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Mm. I mean, what I tend to do is I usually say to the clients, you're allowed three changes. So, you'll get the initial art, and if you want to make a change, we can make, three more revisions. But, you try to get them to really sit down and think about the changes before they request them. Simply because some clients can really get overboard. Like, yeah, they won't go infinity, but they may want five changes, six changes, seven. And I think the more annoying one for me is like, it's not so bad if you realize they're getting closer to what they want, and you can see that, okay, we're almost there, maybe two or more changes and they will be fine. But then you have those clients where it's not a change that sounds like a revision. Like a revision might be like, okay, she looked good, but she's just a little bit too fat. You could slim her down a little bit. And then when you slim her down, you go, no, not so skinny, I don't want so much ribs showing. And you go, all right, fine. And then they might say, all right, I love the hair color a little darker. And you say, all right, we're getting there and whatever. But you have some people who they'll be saying to you, no, put her in a red swimsuit. All right. I don't like the red swimsuit. Put her in a purple swimsuit. No, you know what? Put her back in the original green swimsuit. Are you sitting there going, no, man, you need to sit down and think about this because I can't be going and changing this thing back and forth, back and forth. It have to feel like it's heading towards some end. And so, so I'm just highlighting that on one hand, artists definitely have to be cognizant of the fact that you're going to be asked for revisions. Yes, you can get frustrated, but understand from the client's point of view that they're not an artist and they're trying to figure their way out to the end. But at the same time, the clients do need to exercise some consideration and recognize that, okay, they need to take a little bit of time and think about what they want before they come and give you 25 changes to make, right? I don't know if you agree with that, but
Yeah, I agree. But the what I've had problem with, over the years is not the client so much as the printing organization that I did, the printry.
oh, okay,
Okay,
yeah.
because I learned that the first time I did something for Arden, and the printry had a different idea in terms of how they need it to be done. And every printer is different because almost everybody I work with have a different printer, and the criteria is different. So
Yes, yes,
that is when you get lots of the do-overs because the gleaner, because I did that some for a client, and the gleaner wanted it a particular way, and we had to do that way. And then when we're doing the book for Nikita, the printer had a different way, and I had printers before. Everybody has the criteria is different in terms of how they want the format they want the art in, the the almost everything. print trees differ. I don't know.
Right,
That's
right.
one thing we learned at art school, that you're gonna have issues with the printers. I remember them telling us that, and when you were in school, and then you're
Yeah,
realizing,
yeah.
what I probably should do is to, one of the courses, I don't know if they're doing that now, is have the artists understand how the printer works, so that they, but we never learned that,
Yeah,
back in the
no,
days.
you make a good point. You make a good point, and that is true. I mean, the only time I really experienced that was I did a comic anthology a few years ago. I wasn't the artist. I got like four artists to contribute to the anthology, and the aim of that comic book series was to highlight the different artists out there doing comics. And when we sent it to the printer, it came back and it wasn't the same color that we were seeing on the screen. It was slightly off. And you would send that same file to a different printer, and that other printer had a slightly different color as well. Say, you had to try and find a printer that had more accurate color, or you had to talk to somebody at the printer and say, yeah, the color don't look right, and they would make some adjustments. And then the other thing, which was a little bit tricky for us, was how they cut it, right? Because I don't know why, but a lot of printers here tend not to bleed things to the edge. They tend to have a white border and you have to chop, 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 chop. And that in itself leads to a problem. So the first time I printed the comic, don't remember the name of the printer right now, but the guy who was doing it for us liked the comic. So he took a lot of care in cutting it. But then eventually he stopped working there, and the other people who dealt with it, them just chop chop and piece of the artwork chop off, and it cut the comic lean because them don't chop it right. So when them stapling it, it's staple lean and all kind of foolishness. I would complain to them. They would just go and just kind of slightly nudge it, over and restaple it and never really solve the problem. So I had to go to another printer. But I think you're right in terms of, if they don't teach it. I can't recall beyond learning things like, the importance of CMYK and RGB when, sending something for print. I don't think there's a course that talks about the printer in terms of the different types of printing and what you need to request and, what effects different printers have and so on. That actually would probably be a good thing to incorporate into a course now that you mention it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have it, because I don't know, because I went to Edinburgh a long time ago.
Mhm.
But something came up as well, in Trinidad, and this is something that I learned from Edinburgh, that the printing production generally is done better in
In
Trinidad. Because
Trinidad.
when you go into supermarkets and look at the stuff that are Trinidadian
Right.
labeled better, I mean, we've come a far way, I think
Yeah,
our standard is better now, but back in
right.
the days, you could tell the Jamaican stuff that was printed in Jamaica versus stuff that was printed in Trinidad. I
Mm.
don't know what, and that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's true. Well, I mean, like you said, things are improving now, so hopefully that's the case. So you mentioned that you've worked with your sons quite a lot, and I mean that's really good. I would definitely assume that they get their artistic talent from you or inspiration from you, right? Are they all different types of artists, or you find they all kind of draw the same? Are they all anime
Um,
influenced?
it's like a thumbprint. They're all different, but something about them that I envy is that their line accuracy. They're my drawing is very, very sketchy. Theirs is really neat, and I don't know, because it has a lot to do with how you see things, You know,
Right,
um,
right.
I think Edna Manley, I was kind of getting to the wanting to be neat at one point, but when I went to Edna Manley and everything was free up, just
Right, right.
I just lost it, So the sketchy thing,
No, well, I mean, it definitely fits your style because I don't mind. I don't mind. I mean, to me personally, I don't think artwork has to be clean. It just depends on your style, and it depends on the genre that you're drawing or animating for. Because for example, um the comics I grew up on were like X-Men, X Factor, Spider-Man, back in like 80s, 90s, right? And you could say that they were, mostly clean lines, but I was very drawn to Conan as well, especially the black and white
I remember
thick
that.
graphic novels. And those were kind of sketchy. And the art style really grabbed me. It really fits that genre because, Conan is very gritty. So
Hmm.
the edgy lines kind of added to the grittiness. Like I don't think clean lines would have worked with Conan at all. At least not in my point of view. So I don't know how you used to read Conan
Yeah,
comics
yeah.
or
I mean, comics were my thing, you know. I mean, we're the set of guys who talked about comics, you know, when I was in primary school, because I probably started in primary school, you know, to talk about comics, you know, and so you had to know everybody. You had to know the relationship between Spider-Man and Mary Jane, and you had to know the Earth
yeah,
One and Earth Two and alternate
right,
universe and
right,
who, you know, you had to know all of these things, you know, to
right,
have a
right.
conversation with them, you know, so you make sure that you knew everything, the backstory and all of that, you know. So you know, the landscape has changed in terms of things have gotten more modern, you know, but the essence is still the same.
Right, that is true. That is true. Because I mean, a lot of these stories have changed over time. Different they don't call them universe. Different canons, right? And so on. But like you say, the more it changes, the more it stays the same.
Yeah.
And it's always happened. It's happened before our time. Captain America used to be a propaganda machine for America, and it was all about fighting Hitler. And Batman used to be all about fighting the criminal elements at night, the gangsters and the mobsters, and they've evolved over time, clearly because the world's problems are different now. So the comics or these characters have to kind of match the problems that are in the world today.
Mhm.
X-Men born out of the whole civil rights movement, and now X-Men is something completely different.
Yeah.
Um, but speaking of which, I wanted to bring up back Invincible. What do you think about like the animation on a whole? Not just the drawings, but like just that whole universe of Invincible.
Well, you know, one of my sons actually was the one who brought it to my attention. I kind of saw YouTube clips about it and stuff, but you know, I wasn't gonna really go some way to watch it. Most of the drawing looks good because that's the first thing that attracts me. You know? I mean, the storyline can be crappy. If the drawing looks good, I'll still watch it. Right? I mean, it's so much
Mhm.
better when the storyline is good. But
Right, right.
I thought that it was the complete package. The storyline was realistic because before that, for the most part, the superhero world was very sanitized. You know, so
Yeah, man, I agree.
some things happen and you never saw anything else. It wasn't real to life. You know,
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
they never got hurt. You know, they never. I mean, rarely and so. But
yeah,
Invincible has kind of pulled away the veil. You know, say, hey, this is a real person. You know,
right,
so you know, so the storyline. I mean, it's not completely new, but it is
right.
more it's more realistic.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. And just in case anybody's wondering how comes the sidetracking of Invincible, this is something that I like to do because I don't want artists to just talk about themselves. I like to hear how the artists feel about other art that's out there as well. But yeah, man, for me, Invincible, because I'd seen the trailer before and I had said, okay, I definitely want to watch this because I'm very much into the superhero concepts that straddle the line of what if the superhero was not written by craft? Yeah, what if the superhero was not completely good? Because one of the things that my friends and I used to discuss when we're discussing comics is if you had the power Superman had, why would you be so good? Why would you not take more advantage of the powers that you have. And seeing superhero stories like these now make you go, okay, this makes a little bit more sense because it's just a bit unfathomable that you're the most powerful being in the world, nobody can stop you, but yet you're going to listen to these people and they,
Show restraint.
extreme, yeah, show so much restraint, and I mean, yeah, we're grateful to have somebody this powerful who has that much restraint, but realistically speaking, which is why Lex Luthor doesn't like Superman, because he said, what if Superman snap one day? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
But it slightly reminded me of DC.
If you look at it
What's
that
that?
way now, if you
Mhm.
look at it that way, Lex Luthor is the good guy.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. All right, so there's an alternate universe for Superman where Lex Luthor is a good guy. It's called Superman, no, sorry, Justice League Monsters and Demons, I think it name, or something like that. And in it, Superman was actually raised by some Mexicans, right? So
yeah,
before his parents could find him, some Mexicans found him and they raised him, right? So he was raised like an immigrant. So he didn't have loyalty to America, right? And Batman was actually like a half vampire, half human being. And Wonder Woman was pretty much herself, but she wore armor all the time. But the thing about it was Superman's attitude in that thing. Lex Luthor didn't like him because Lex Luthor was like, look, this man is too dangerous. But Superman was of the opinion whenever the army came to him and said, Superman, you need to turn yourself in. Superman would look on them and say, you and what army going to take me? Like, really? Who going to take me in? And I said, yeah, that sounds like something that Superman would say. I don't see how Superman would be like, all right, fine, take me in. I can burst these chains anytime, but I'll just go along with it. It just never makes sense. So with Invincible, without spoiling it for anybody, the main character is not so good. And when you hear his reasoning behind not being not so good, you kind of understand. You say, that makes perfect sense. And I'll be honest, at the end of the first episode, I don't know how you felt, but at the
first
end of the
episode on first season.
no, when the first episode of Invincible, I mean, all of the entire season is good, but when the first episode ended, I knew that this was a show I'd be addicted to because how it ended, I didn't read the comics for Invincible before I watched the animation.
Okay.
So when it ended, I don't know if you remember how the first episode ended, where you know the well, not the main character. What's his name again? Oh gosh, what is his name? Omni-Man. When Omni-Man, and let me just warn anybody listening again, if you haven't watched Invincible, cock your ears. When Omni-Man killed the entire team, you remember that?
Uh-huh.
Right. When that happened, I was sitting there like, what the hell is going on here? Like, whoa. Like that blew me away because I said, okay, now I need to definitely watch the rest of the season because I need to understand why he did this and why. But
Uh-huh.
that was an opening for how gruesome the show was going to be. So when I saw that, I said, all right, this show is going to be very different. Very, very, very different. Because not only is this guy, not really a good guy, but he's portraying the good guy and he's the good guy's enemy at the same time. You know, and he's raising the good guy in this series. So it was definitely something where so a lot of plot twists are going to
Yeah,
occur.
conflict. The conflict made
Yeah,
it something to look forward to.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, so back to you and the animation thing now. So well, we got to the secret of how you get to draw all of these animations. You get up at some ungodly hour and put in the work. Can I ask, like, what advice would you have for artists who want to become animators or take part in animation? Like, what would advice would you give them?
First advice is to love drawing, right? Because there are going to be points in time when it's frustrating, right? There's so many drawings that you have to do, and you have to start over or do this over. But if you like drawing, if you love to
Mhm.
draw, you'll just shirk it off and just go ahead. Right? So the first thing is to love drawing. The second thing is to be observant, right? You have to constantly understand your environment, observe it, see. When you go into a crowd, you're always noticing the trees, the light, or the light falls on it, how it's shaped, the lines, the color, the texture. So you have to be an observant person. You know, somebody because I'm into music as well. You know, somebody sent me a music video this morning. You know, and I was like, I said, hey, the two other guys in the music videos are twins, the guitarist and I'm saying, how you know? I mean, because I noticed everything. You know, he said he watched it several times and didn't see that two other guys look exactly alike. You know, you know, so being, yeah, you asked me why. I said it's an art thing. You know, so I mean, I'm looking at your screen. I've seen everything in your background, and you know, and figured out how I draw it in perspective. You know, where I put the vanishing point and all of that. You know, so you constantly think art. So when I'm talking to somebody, I'm saying, okay, that's how I draw the light coming from the left. You know, so you have to love it so much that it's always in your head.
Right,
you know,
right.
talking at the back of your mind, you know. So yeah, so those are the once you get those two, right? Learning the applications or the different types of applications is
secondary.
You know, if you're not willing to constantly up your skills, because I mean I've been drawing forever, and I'm always looking at other people's work and saying, hey, I didn't know that. You know, there are always stuff that you can learn. You should never ever get to the point where you figure you know everything. I'm always I used to hate to draw teeth. You know, back in the days when people used to give a portrait to do, I like to make sure the mouth closed. Because, you know, hated drawing teeth. And then I remember, I think it was I said it to my principal, Miss Malai. Said, hey, I don't like drawing teeth. And she said, you need to get over that. And you know, I've been looking at tutorials how to draw teeth, and I'm not afraid of drawing teeth anymore. But up until recently, I dreaded drawing teeth. Right? So always, I mean, there are always going to be things that because I know this artist who doesn't like to draw eyes. So all the drawing, draw an outline, and the body look whole, detail and everything, but the head doesn't have any features, and that's his style. That's his style because he doesn't like drawing the features of the face.
Right. It's like
huh?
You know, I said it's interesting you said that because I met an artist the other day who said, like, I noticed that the hands and the feet were big in comparison to the rest of the body, and I said, boy, you know, the hands and feet they're not proportionate, and I said, boy, they don't like drawing hands, so they draw the hands big, so that you know it's easier for them to draw the hands, and they said that that's their style. And I mean, you can definitely see it's their style, but at the same time, I'm saying, boy, even though you develop that as a style, it's not something you should run from because what happens if somebody wants you to draw something proportionate? You know, are you going to force them to use your style? You know, you should be versatile enough to be able to draw it the right way if you have to. You know,
face your demons.
face your demons. Okay, great. So we're definitely going to highlight that as one of the things, the advice you give to people: face your demons. I think that's a good one. In terms of teaching, right? How do you find that your students take this advice, you know, easily, or I guess I should word it a different way. What percentage of your students you find like to draw and are probably really talented at it and going to do it, after class versus the students who are just like, oh God, drawing is so hard, I can't bother with it. Are you
Okay,
like that amazing teacher where everybody's like, oh, I love art so much?
the majority of the class is usually in the oh no art, oh no, right? And then you have the minority, one or two guys who help you to like come into the class because they are so spirited and and they're always saying, sir, I mean, I teach online now for the most part, right? So it's a little different, but I mean, every class I'd have 1 or 2 students who would want to show me their work before class or after class, so even though I'm not seeing them face to face, I'm still coming into contact with
Right.
students who are like that. And speaking of that, I have had the privilege and pleasure to teach some students who are really good artists, like Michael Talbot and Natu, right? I taught them in third form and 12 and 13th grade, right? And Michael, I kind of tried to get them into figure drawing, because figure drawing generally is downplayed in high schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I realized that, especially when I started teaching at UE, that not lots of institutions pay the attention that figure drawing needs. I mean, at my school, I am the figure drawing person, right? So there's always a figure drawing question on the CXC paper, right? And my students are the one that tend to do that, because I teach figure drawing, right? I mean, if you can draw figures, you can draw still life, right?
Okay.
But other teachers tend to be more into still life, but object. But I can't remember who said it. Once you can draw figures, you can draw anything. So I always try to put the focus on the figure drawing, which is
Right.
it's like, if you can lift 10 pounds, you can lift 1 pound.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
A figure drawing is 10 pounds. Still life is 1 pound, right? So I mean, you can draw objects, you can draw landscape, you can draw buildings. Once you can do figure drawing, because it's more complicated.
I get you. I get you. That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I didn't do art to CXC level in high school. I was always encouraged and pushed into the sciences. But yeah, I don't remember learning figure drawing in high school. But high school was such a long time ago, I didn't know if anything changed.
Which high school was that?
JC. So yeah, but I know when I encountered figure drawing in the animation program at UA, which I found fascinating, because I hadn't seen figure drawing in other animation courses. I do believe UTech has it as well, but and of course Edna must have it. But other animation programs, I hadn't seen it, and even just doing a little figure drawing, I can say it's improved my animation a lot, because one of the things that I realized, one of the huge differences between Western animation and Eastern animation, even though yes, you can say, well, the anime, they have big eyes and tiny noses, if any nose at all, and everybody's hyper anatomically correct. Beyond that, one of the things that I noticed is that with anime, they get away a lot with characters not doing anything. I don't know if you've noticed it, but a character will just be standing there and the camera is just panning and they're not moving. But you don't quite realize that they're not moving. And it wasn't until I started to do figure drawing that I realized why. A lot of the Western animation, the characters are standing up straight or standing up stiff, so they have to be moving all the while for you to believe they're alive. But then when a character has, you have that action line and they're not quite standing straight, they're at some kind of angle that suggests a posture or suggests an attitude, you don't need much to believe that they're moving. You just need some music and the camera moving, and you hear someone talking, you may not see them talking, but your mind fills in the rest because
Yeah.
of how the pose is oriented versus if they're just dead straight and they feel like a mannequin. So it's definitely helped me in that perspective of, you know, getting those lines correct, getting those curves correct to suggest a posture that communicates some kind of attitude, which is what art really is, communication,
Mhm.
right? what are you communicating? Is this character sad? Is this character happy? Are they going through anguish? Versus you're looking at the character and you can't tell what the character is feeling. So then you become disconnected. So I mean, I understand what you're saying when you say if you know to do figure drawing, you should be able to know to do everything else because it's all about communication, through lines. Right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
And so in terms of well, just going back to students again, because you mentioned something which I find happens all the while. Sometimes you're teaching a course and it feels like the students are not that enthused about it, and so it kind of kills your energy. But then once in a while you get those students that they really, really like the subject matter and they're really enthused about it, and it energizes you to, you know, bring your bring your A game when you come to class. You're not just delivering material, you actually want them to get better. You say that's a few in your classes, right? Do you ever wonder to yourself like how can you get the other students more inspired to, bring out their fullest potential, or do you find that the other students didn't really want to do art in the first place and so they're just trying to get the grade?
I had a student once, an eighth grader, and
Mm-hmm.
I always tell all the other classes after this happened about the student. He had no idea what he was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and we taught and we encouraged him and stuff. We went off on holidays. I can't remember one of them short holidays. And when we came back, he said, "Sir, I drew this," and I was like, "You did that?" I was like, "Yes, sir. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and stuff." And the guy was good. The guy was, I couldn't believe it was the same guy. I saw his father in the parking lot and I had to say, "Hey, your son is spectacular." This is, he would be one of the students who don't have a clue and not interested. And he just decided that, hey, I'm going to try this. And he surprised himself, he surprised me. And it was so good that I had to go up to his dad and say, hey, your son has done something almost impossible, right?
Right.
So I tell all the students, I always tell students, hey, always tell them about him, whenever they say
Mm-hmm.
it. Because most of the time it's not about not being able to, it's about not trying. Because everybody can draw. You can draw before you can write. Yeah, okay.
True.
So your drawing ability actually precedes your ability to write.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of, like anything else, repetition.
Right. Repetition.
Yeah,
Right. Repetition is the mother of skill, let's say.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good story. And I mean, yeah, that's because as a teacher, I'm always trying to find a way to bring up, even the slowest students, because I believe that if they try, they will be able to do, but sometimes you can't always pull them along because they don't want to be pulled along, or, they might be going through something or whatever the case is. But it's always inspiring when a student actually does, leave and take the inspiration you've given them and take it to another level and come back and surprise you. I'm sure that moment was a very rewarding moment for you.
is I mean, and I, as I said, I use it as a demonstration every
Yeah,
year.
every
You
year.
know,
Yeah, good to have stuff like that. Well, Ron, it was good talking to you. I definitely look forward to seeing more of your little animation. I don't even know what to call them, if I call them animation doodles, because they're not exactly doodles, they're very detailed. Um, but more so than anything, I'd love to see you do an animated short someday, even like a 1 minute thing. I'd love to see something like that. Maybe one of the stories that you write. It would be very interesting to see, you know.
yeah, yeah. I dream about doing stuff like that. But I'll get there. Because I'm still learning the trade.
Right, right.
So lots of stuff. Um, I mean, it may appear it's because of my drawing skills
Right.
why it seems that I probably know more than I do.
Mm-mm.
Okay? But it's just a matter of getting there, and I will get there.
Yeah, man, because I mean, at the end of the day, um, what you do, some people would consider rotoscoping because you're essentially, replicating the frames that you see in the references. And
Mhm.
then I'm sure you want to get to the point where one day you're actually using all the information you've got from these references and actually creating something, that doesn't exist, even in terms of movement, you
Mhm.
know, um, you know, including all of the principles of animation, like, the timing and the spacing and the arcing and, all of those things, squash and stretch to create something, you know, not before seen. I mean, don't get me wrong, Disney is very well known for, you know, their their rotoscoping. It's why Snow White looks so good and so timeless, etc.
Mhm.
But then beyond that, which is by far, I think beyond that, what made it special was even though they use real life videos to get the references, they still, what you call it, they still use those movements on an imaginative character, meaning maybe one of these days your son might come up with a character and you use one of the movements or some of the movements from the animations you've done and use that character and have them do that same movement. Maybe that would be an interesting challenge. What do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
think?
yeah. You need to build a foundation first, and that's what I'm doing.
Mm,
And to it's like I can draw faces out of my head now,
right,
right? Had to have paid attention to a real face to be able to one day do a realistic face from imagination, right? Because I've
right,
understood where everything is, how the light hits it, and all of that. So I'm building the skeleton,
right, right.
and one of these days we'll get to the point where I'll cover it with skin, muscles.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I'm looking forward to that day, and I mean, so far, so good. The work looks good. I like the fact that you're practicing it all the while, so you'll only get better and better because the repetition is there. So I'm just looking forward to one of your stories coming to life through that video.
Hey, I didn't know what rotoscoping was.
Mhm.
I mean, because I understand that they trace over the stuff, the reference.
Right. Mm.
For me, I never ever trace.
Right. Mm.
So I always, even from a kid, when we were in school and the teacher gave you the stuff to trace, I remember getting in 2nd grade a Noah's Ark to trace. All the kids were tracing. I was like, no, I can't trace it.
Mhm.
That's wrong. That's so wrong.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, but I
No,
understand the principle.
I wasn't suggesting that you're tracing. I was just saying that the stuff that you animate, it looks like you say, maybe you took a video reference and
Yeah.
you're looking, replicating as basically saying, I'd love to see. For example, you decide that, all right, now that I've gotten the concept down, now I
Mhm.
want to take my son's, you know, Anansi character and do the same thing, have them run on the beach and spin and twirl using that same kind of movement. Because that's what Disney did. They used the references for the movement and then they applied it to original characters.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the video where they show you how much animation Disney has reused over the years.
Yeah, I've
So
seen
you
it. I've seen that.
right,
It's like, and other people
right.
have used it as well.
What's that?
Other
And all
people have
right.
used it as
Exactly.
well.
Other people have used it as well because I mean at the end of the day, what's beautiful about it is that the movement looks realistic. Because
Mhm.
when I look at your stuff, you're like, there's no doubt that this must have come from reference because it looks so realistic. It's not easy for somebody to imagine those subtleties in movement. And then of course now when you apply it to when you apply it to an original character, that's when people are amazed, like when they see Snow White or they see Cinderella, and they go, why the movement looks so realistic and fluid and believable and and it just comes from those hours upon hours of these artists drawing, from reference. Like you say, you're not you're not making up what the movement looks like. You're actually getting the accurate movement so that when people see it, then they can't tell
They're
it from
convinced.
real. Yeah, man, they're convinced that it's real, you know, and that's the beauty of what you do. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it applied to, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
one of
what I
your
like Incredibles.
imagination.
Not Incredibles, Invincibles. No, Invincibles. It does all that you're talking about.
Yeah,
In terms of
yeah,
the movement, the perspective, and the foreshortening. Everything is.
right. Yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man. Like, yeah, those things. Because I mean, that's definitely something that is like I wish I had more time to practice it. You know, been trying to get the hours, but I can't wake up them early hours of morning like you. I can get in that practice. But that's definitely something that I've been, you know, working on because the more realistic you can make the movements, you know, the more convincing and it just impresses people more in terms of you want to watch the animation because the action feels real or you know the movement feels real. You know, it doesn't feel any different from watching a movie. You
Yeah.
know, otherwise people think it looks cartoony and not so realistic. You know, the only difference is that I want to do it with cutout animation. I like cutout animation.
Hey, I need to get all of those as well. You know,
Hmm.
I, I don't understand the concepts. But I mean, I know stop motion animation because you
Right.
know, and so, but the other types of animation, 3D animation, I want to get into those, eventually. So I
You would
mean,
be good. You would be good at 3D animation, believe me. A lot of the a lot of the really good 3D animators understand animation from a frame by frame level, you know.
okay,
And the reason being is that so with 3D animation, because it's so close to realistic, it's the movement has to be realistic as well. So the less
more
realistic,
realistic.
what's that?
It has to be even more realistic.
Right, right. Because the less realistic the character is, you can get away with unrealistic movement because
Mhm.
your mind is already conditioned that the character is not realistic. But then when it becomes 3D and it starts to look more and more realistic, if the movement is similar to a dumbed down character, it throws it off because you're expecting realistic movement and you're not seeing realistic movement. It's one of the reasons why I don't know if you know Tangled, but that animation, they had to bring in one of the old great animators back in, you know, Disney early days to evaluate the animation, you know, because what they were trying to avoid, you know, was before that 3D animation kind of had this, I don't want to call it robotic, but cartoony feel to it. And they kind of wanted to make sure that Tangled felt like the old time Disney 2D animations and not
Mhm.
feel like, you know, a robotic or cartoony feeling 3D animation. So they had to bring in one of the old animators to come and evaluate the movement, you know,
Okay.
and because of the many hours and hours and hours they have of drawing and replicating real life, they could look and go, oh no, that you know that's not realistic. You need you know more hip movement here and shoulder movement and you know all of that stuff. And Tangled's animation came out quite you know quite beautiful. You know, it felt very very Disney. So
Tangled,
yeah,
right?
I think you
Which one?
huh?
Which one?
Tangled,
Oh,
Tangled,
oh,
the one
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
long.
yeah, yeah. I remember it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. They had to bring in one of those animators from, you know, the frame by frame days to come in and evaluate the movement, you know. So that's why I say you would be a good 3D animator. And there was another, I can't remember his name now, but there was an animator who he came to Jamaica some years ago. He worked on Lion King, and eventually when Disney moved over to 3D, he had to start working in 3D. And he said that beyond the complexities of the software, it wasn't that difficult. His hurdle was just getting past the learning curve for the software. But once he got past the learning curve for the software, it wasn't much, you know, it wasn't a difficult task to take on, you know. Because you're not drawing frame by frame, you're moving the characters, you know, like a sort of like a puppet. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. But yeah, Ronnie, it was a good talking to you. Wealth of information, and you know, glad you're taking on animation and teaching art in the animation program. I really hope the artists or the young artists, up and coming artists, listen to everything that you have to say. You know, you said some key points like face your demons, which I definitely believe is a very, very important one. You know, repetition was another one that you know, get up every day and practice if you really love the art form. And of course, he gave us that great anecdote about the student who, you know, couldn't bother in class, but over the summer practice and became an excellent artist. So I hope your students in the future take all of those lessons from you and, you know, become as great as you someday. Right? Yeah, man. Thanks again for having this chat
And it
with
was a
me.
pleasure.
What's that?
A pleasure.
Okay, great, great. Oh, and don't forget that, you know, as Creative of the Month, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can do a live or pre-recorded demonstration, maybe of you doing your animation. I don't know if you use Procreate now, where you can record your drawing steps, you know, or if you want to just come on
Um,
live and do a
Clip
sketch of
Studio
some.
has something like that.
What's that?
Studio.
Oh, Clip Studio. Okay, okay. Yeah, that would be interesting, you know, just to show off the process. You know, it would be nice to see. But
Okay.
that's if you feel so inclined, because I know it takes time. So, you know, if you have the time,
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I, the one thing I've learned, don't turn on challenges.
don't turn on challenges.
When you turn the challenges
Okay.
down, each challenge that you take on makes it better. Even this
See,
interview
not a
was
good
was
habit.
was, was a challenge that I
Mm,
had to turn on or not turn on,
right,
right?
right.
And it's like going up a ladder. Um, which wrong are you not going to take? You won't go any further if you stop, right? So I'll
Makes sense.
definitely take that on.
Make, makes sense. Great, great note to end on. All right, man. So enjoy the rest of your day, and you know we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, man. All right, Kevin.
All right. Yeah, man.